On the show tonight, we have a veteran of corporate India, Adi Godrej, a man who knows the Tata Group very, very well. The lawyer for Ratan Tata and Tata Sons, Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Arun Giri, who's been on top of all the developments. And Suhas Tuljapurkar, managing partner at Legacies. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Mr. Singhvi, thanks very much. I know you have limited time, so let me start by asking you about the legal implications and how you see this playing out, because it looks like both parties are headed to the courtroom.
I'm sorry to disappoint you. I told your reporter that I am representing Mr. Ratan Tata and the group, the Tata Group, tomorrow, and therefore I am not able to speak on the merits. All that I have said is that it's a rather sad day, because all these are very senior and respected and sober people. But everybody knows in this country that Mr. Ratan Tata has tremendous dignity and sobriety, and he acts only in the interests of the Tata Group. It is unfortunate that the entire board lost confidence in its earlier chairman, and therefore this action had to be taken. I am sure that statesmanship will win over the day, and we also note the statement issued by Mr. Mistry that he is not contemplating immediate legal action. Let us see how things pan out, but ultimately if nothing works out, the courts are always there. But I think there is it's not a case of, making a scoring debating points or I told you so's or triumphant snide remarks, etc. It's not a case like that.
Mr. Singhvi, you're saying that you represent the Tata Group and Ratan Tata, and that the board lost confidence in Cyrus Mistry, and hence it was perfectly within its right to take this action. But why the need for legal recourse, or at least to mull legal options? As you pointed out yourself, and Cyrus Mistry had said that they have not sought legal recourse just yet, which leaves the option open. But you have decided to file a caveat in the Bombay High Court and the NCLT, sir. Why this move to the courtroom then?
I think the press is completely misunderstanding the caveat issue. Caveat is meaningless. It is only an advanced early warning system in case somebody wants notice of a potential action. Anybody can file a caveat. It means nothing. The trigger has to be by somebody else, and we note Mr. Mistry's statement that he doesn't intend to take immediate action. But the point is that in this, it's a very, it's an unfortunate event. Nobody does it willingly, but if the board loses confidence, then it happens.
Mr. Singh, we appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Let's go across to another influential voice. My colleague Lata Venkatesh spoke with veteran of corporate India, Adi Godrej, a man who knows the Tata Group very well, on Cyrus Mistry's removals from Tata Sons. Adi Godrej has called this a permanent mark on the Tata Group's reputation. He believes that there could have been better ways of ironing out these differences. Here's a slice of that conversation.
I'm quite saddened to see something like this happen at India's most renowned business group. It's not good for Indian business, and there are better ways of sorting out differences. So I'm quite saddened with what has happened. And I've, of course, known Cyrus most of his life and always found him to be a person of integrity and character.
Okay. Would you say that the seeds of this conflict is because for the first time the chairman of Tata Sons was not the chairman of the Tata Trusts, and therefore this conflict?
That's a possibility. It's difficult to tell, and that can always give rise to problems. But I am not privy to exactly why these things have happened, but I'm very sad that it has happened. It's not good for corporate India, and it's not good for one of India's most renowned business group.
Knowing as you do the inmates of Bombay House and the top echelons of the Tata Group companies, do you think this might now start impacting the group companies?
It's possible. I hope not, because they're companies which are very important to the Indian economy. But it's overall quite sad, and let's see how it progresses. And you just mentioned on the TV, I heard that this is going into legal ramifications.
Do you see a resolution at all, sir, or have things reached a point of no return?
Doesn't look like it. I think they've taken steps where I don't think there will be a resolution unless there are legal interventions.
If you had to pick successors, what would your list look like?
It's difficult. I have not given it thought. I think even Cyrus, when he took over, he was part of the selection committee for a successor, and then they went to him, and people were also surprised that he was appointed the successor. When this sort of a thing happens, I think it will be difficult for a potential successor.
Well, that's Adi Godrej there saying that this will certainly impact the reputation and credibility of the Tata Group. Arun Giri, who's been right on top of all the developments, joins us. Also with us, Suhas Tuljapurkar, Managing Partner at Legacies. Arun, let me come to you and let's make it absolutely clear. There is no official communication from either the Tatas beyond the statement that was put out yesterday and beyond the statement that Shapurji Palunji has put out. It's a nuanced statement suggesting that at this point in time, they're not exploring litigation or going legal, but clearly suggesting that that option is available to them. But Arun, piece together for us, because you've been talking to insiders from both sides, of what really transpired over the last 24 hours, and more importantly, what transpired allegedly, and I'm using that word carefully, at that crucial board meeting.
Quite important, Shereen, here. When you speak to people who are representing Tata Trust's interest in Tata Sons, they say that this is all about corporate democracy, quote unquote. What they are arguing is that the shareholders have a right to vote out a director, that they are relying on a landmark Supreme Court judgment on which probably Suhas can tell us more, LIC versus Escorts. The Supreme Court judgment in LIC versus Escorts clearly gave the right or permitted LIC and a clutch of financial institutions who had a significant stake in Escorts to remove the director. And the Supreme Court there remarked that that the shareholders had every right to remove the director without offering any detailed reasons. And why this is important? Because at the board meeting yesterday, Mr. Mistry is learned to have asked, when this item came up for discussion, when one of the board members presented this resolution for his replacement as the chairman of Tata Sons by Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. Mistry is learned to have asked, what is the urgency today? I need time to think. What is the reason? He asked for reasons. At this point, one of the board members is learned to have told Mr. Mistry that the board had discussed this matter amongst themselves and that they were continuing Mr. Mistry as a director, but the board at the same time had a right to replace Mr. Mistry as the chairman. No reasons were given. When we pressed the Tata Trust, person representing their interest on why the reasons were not given, they said, he said that they did not want to wash any dirty linen in public to save embarrassment to anyone. Therefore, the reasons were not offered and the reasons were not necessary to be offered. That is extremely critical. But Shereen, we also spoke to one of the top Tata Group directors, executives, who's known both the families, who knows Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. Mistry, the family for almost 3 decades. And this is what he told us. He said that that the lack of communication between Mr. Tata and Mr. Mistry was the key reason for what happened yesterday. He said that the absence of communication between the two had led to a lot of business decisions of Mr. Mistry being challenged, and the last straw or the tipping point came 3 months ago when Tata Group did an acquisition and Mr. Ratan Tata, neither Mr. Ratan Tata nor the Tata Sons board was aware of the acquisition till the next morning when they read the newspapers, and it seems that Mr. Tata was quite furious about the same. When you talk to people who are close to both, they say that Mr. Mistry probably would have violated the insider trading regulations had he shared that information with the Tata Sons board. So this is the legal answer that we got. But if you ask the overarching reason why this happened, I am told by the group executive, communication, and communication. But there are a couple of people who've known Mr. Mistry for long who believe that he will not go the litigation route. That is what is their personal belief, having known Mr. Mistry for so long.
Okay. Let me go across to Suhas. Suhas, you've heard what Arun has said. And at this point in time, we don't know whether this will head to court. A caveat that's been filed by the Tatas doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to head into the courtroom eventually. But what could be the arguments on both sides? Very quickly, if you could explain that for our viewers. What could be the arguments that the Tata Sons will make? Arun gave us the precedent of LIC versus Escorts as a likely premise. And what could be the argument if Cyrus Mistry were to move court?
See, I think it will be speculative to say at this stage what would be the arguments. But if you were to look at what are the kind of present circumstances, as Arun put it, it's the kind of democracy of the shareholders, it's the corporate democracy. In that, removal of chairman is no big deal in that sense. In various companies you have chairmen and you have chairpersons who step out, who at many times, these are chairmen for meetings, and they step out and they kind of are not available for the meeting, then the next person takes over as a chairman. I mean, just remember that he is not being removed as a director. He is being replaced as a chairman of Tata Sons. Now, as the consequences would be that the executive committee through whom the chairman was implementing his decision, that's been disbanded. So obviously...
Disbanded, yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Shereen, what's happening is really, we're reading probably too much into the replacement of chairman to say that there has been a removal. I don't think the corporate action has resulted into removal of Mr. Mistry as a director.
Okay, Suhas, Arun, thanks very much for joining us with your comments on the show, and Arun for constantly updating us on this story. I also spoke with Rajiv Kumar, a man who's been tracking this story, and of course the former DG of FICCI. He knows the Tata Group. Also Morgan Witzel, who's the author of the book on Tatas, to get their comments. Also with us, Saurabh Mazumdar, the editor of Forbes.
Really is a very sad day that that the brand is going to be tarnished. There's no doubt, there is no doubt about that. And I really just hope that it is not dragged into the courts, because once it is, then we don't know what might come out. Because you mentioned corporate democracy, but democracy, shareholder democracy, but which shareholders are we talking about? I mean, after all, the Tata Sons shareholders, the shareholding is very highly, is concentrated, and so you might well think, you might well refer to, in some sense, shareholder oligarchy, if you like, rather than democracy, and shareholder, shareholder sort of bullying their way through. So my one point, Shereen, though, is that all of this could have been prevented if and only if the Tata Sons board had come out with a proper explanation as to why this amazing, drastic step, precipitate step has been taken. And in light of the fact that this has not been done, I think it doesn't show very well on the corporate governance style of Tata Sons at all.
We don't know the details, but this does seem to be a case of someone unwilling to let go.
Well, Shereen, we don't know much about it, and that's a caveat, to use the word which is being most used today. That's a caveat one needs to put forward right up there. We don't know what really transpired, like Mr. Rajiv Kumar says, for the sudden and hasty decision in which Mr. Mistry has been removed. But definitely, as we said yesterday as well, we were discussing, and I think it's pretty evident that the styles of governance and operations were very, very different for both the people in question. So while Cyrus Mistry has gotten his own GEC, which has now been disbanded, with people who now we are talking about, whether they actually overstretched their powers and all of that. And then there were the operating companies. There were also a lot of people in the group who were obviously have been there for years and have been used to a certain style of functioning. Also, strategic decisions which may or may not have gone down well, not just with Mr. Tata, who, remember, was not on the board, but he's, the Tata Trust 66% shareholder, but also the rest of the board, who clearly have stood by this change and this new decision. So one doesn't really know what exactly was the trigger, but it's very clear that the way in which Mr. Mistry was taking the group, rightly or wrongly, obviously was the key cause of friction. Until something else comes out, we don't know what.
Morgan, let me bring you in on this conversation. And now this is really going to be about rebuilding credibility, rebuilding trust, and that is going to be a significant challenge, even though Mr. Tata, in a sense, is back at the helm. And the question now about the successor, names are being bandied about. The similar names did the rounds before Cyrus Mistry was brought in as well. But, the challenge for whoever comes in as a successor for Cyrus Mistry, given the atmosphere that stands so vitiated today?
Well, yes, I think you're absolutely right. The challenge is going to be one of rebuilding trust. And so the leader whom they pick this time is obviously going to be rather different from the leader they picked the last time, not just for the obvious reason that there's been this breakdown that you refer to between the chairman and effectively their chief shareholder, the head of the Tata Trust. But also, times have changed. Things have moved on. There have been 4 years of change in the global economy. The Tata Group is in a different position than it was before. There's a whole bunch of other things out there that have to be looked at, too. Plus, as you say, there is that issue of rebuilding whatever trust has been lost. I mean, I'm speaking from a European perspective. I don't take quite such a gloomy picture as some of your other speakers have about the issue of loss of trust. The main thing that is worrying people in the European companies of Tata here in the UK and Germany elsewhere is simply the uncertainty. It's what's going to happen next. You know, the discussions with Krupp Thiessen about the future of Tata Steel, for example. Where are those going to go? Is there going to be a change of policy on those? And so employees and customers and suppliers of Tata's European companies are basically now just sort of sitting and waiting to see what's going to happen next. So another crucial factor here, I think, is going to be speed of response, a move to reassure the markets, a move to reassure employees and suppliers and other stakeholders that it will be business as usual at Tata. That's going to be every bit as critical, I think, as the choice of a new leader.